Lance Leipold is entering his 5th year with Kansas, and what he has done there has been nothing short of amazing. He has made Kansas football relevant again. He took the Jayhawks to their first bowl game since 2008 back in 2022. In 2023, he followed that up with a 9-win season and a bowl victory and actually finished ranked. And all of that makes last year so disappointing. That's why last year was so disappointing. The Jayhawks had so much experience, such high hopes after a 9-win season. They started the season ranked 22nd in the nation, but then started 1-5. They started the year at ranked number 22, but then started 1-5, with 4 of those 5 losses coming by 1 possession. That's what makes it hurt even worse, is looking at last year's schedule, looking at what Kansas did, and knowing that it could have been a very special season for the Jayhawks. 5-7, 5 1-possession losses overall, and they won 3 straight games in upset fashion over number 17 Iowa State, on the road at number 7 BYU, and then against number 16 Colorado. So 3 big-time ranked upset wins in a row. 5-7, you take those 5 1-possession losses that Kansas probably should have won. They're a 10-win team, and we're talking playoff in Lawrence. Like, that's what hurts the most for Kansas. But it's all in the past. We got to look to 2025 now. We got to look to the future. And look, this is a team that, wants to go out on a high, especially the seniors that are going to be there, namely their quarterback Jalen Daniels, who's looking to bounce back in a big way from a disappointing season. I know he's battled injuries, maybe wasn't completely 100%, but only threw for a little over 2,400 yards, 14 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, did not take great care of the football, but did rush for over 440 yards and 6 touchdowns. So we're kind of hoping Jalen Daniels returns to that form we saw in 2023 and at times in 2022. And I think he can absolutely get there, especially if he can stay healthy. They do return Daniel Highshaw at running back. He was kind of overshadowed at times because of Devin Neal and how great he was, but Highshaw did rush for nearly 400 yards and a very dangerous running back, going to fill that void perfectly. The Jayhawks do lose, though, their top 7 pass catchers. They add new guys like Cam Pickett, third-team All-MAC selection from Ball State, Emmanuel Henderson transferring in from Alabama, and Bryson Canty coming in from Columbia, where he was a first-team Ivy League selection. So the question is, Jalen Daniels, can he return to form? Can he stay healthy? And if he does, can he build enough chemistry with a relatively new crew of wide receivers? And wide receivers that played well at their respective schools, but maybe nothing like they're going to see here in the Big 12. The offensive line has 82 starts coming back, an offensive line that only gave up 10 sacks last year. If they can maintain that form, this Kansas team can be very, very good offensively in 2025. And remember, they were very balanced last year. 211 rushing yards per game, 209 passing yards per game, about as balanced as you can get. Defense still needs work. Last year it was the best defense they've had yet under Lance Leipold. 26 points per game is all they gave up. They still gave up 393 yards per game. That includes 154 on the ground. So they've slowly gotten better, because a couple of years ago they were averaging over 40 points per game defensively, and that's not good. So they've gotten better with each passing year. This year you wonder if that'll still be the case, because Kansas does lose 9 of their top 11 tacklers from last season. But there's still some talent coming back, right? The defensive line has Dean Miller, 6 sacks for the Jayhawks last year. DJ Withers had 3 sacks for them last year. So 9 sacks last year from 2 big guys up front on that defensive line. The linebacking core added a huge addition in Trey Lathan coming in from West Virginia. Joseph Sipp comes in from Bowling Green. First team MAC selection with the Falcons, had 7 sacks. The secondary is the biggest area of concern for Kansas. They gave up 239 passing yards per game. They lose Mello Dotson. They lose Kobe Bryant. There's a lot of questions and inexperience in that secondary, and that's concerning when they face some of the better quarterbacks within this conference. But you take a look at the schedule for the Jayhawks. It is manageable. This is a year where you hope they can at least return to the postseason. I don't think anybody's expecting Kansas to contend for a Big 12 title that maybe some of us thought they could do last year. No one's expecting them to compete for a playoff berth. I think the ultimate goal for Kansas is just to get to a bowl game, and I think they can do that. I'll tell you right now, I think they start, let's go ahead and just do the first 3, 2-1. They're going to beat Fresno State in week 0, debuting the new stadium for Kansas. Last year, they really didn't have a home stadium. They were getting that new one ready to go, and now it's ready. So I expect a big crowd throughout the course of the year. Nice, renovated, bright, fancy stadium for Kansas. It's going to be fantastic for them. They should beat Fresno State in year 1 under Matt Entz for the Bulldogs. They'll beat Wagner. They'll lose to Missouri, though, in the border war, renewing that rivalry. These two teams have not met since 2011, but the Missouri defense ultimately going to be too strong. They might have some issues offensively, although maybe not against this Kansas defense, but the Kansas offense is going to struggle on the road against the Missouri defense. It's by far the strength of the team. So they're 2-1 heading in to their bye week and then heading into the bulk of Big 12 conference play. And I'll tell you right now, I think it's a great opportunity for Kansas. If they want to go bowling, they've really got to take advantage of the beginning of Big 12 play. Because if you look at the back half, you look at what's kind of happening from like October 11th and on. So pretty much literally the second half of the season is when they play all the really good Big 12 teams, right? It's when they have to go on the road to Texas Tech, play Kansas State, on the road to Iowa State, and then Utah. So 4 of the better teams within this conference come in the final 6 games of the season. That's why Kansas really needs to do as much damage as they can in the first 6 games of the season. And I think they'll take advantage of that. I think they will do that. I think they start 3-0 in conference play. I do think they'll beat West Virginia, Cincinnati, and beat UCF on the road. West Virginia, they should have beat them last year. Plain and simple. And I know these two teams are different from last year. I get it. But Kansas lost 32-28. They allowed 2 touchdowns in the final 3:27. 3:27. They were up by, 28-17? End up losing 32-28. Now, they get this game at home, off a week of rest. A West Virginia team now led by Rich Rodriguez. A lot of question marks on both sides of the ball for the Mountaineers. Going to be a growing pain year, a rebuilding year for them. Kansas should get the job done. They stay at home, kind of riding a high. I think they can beat Cincinnati. Cincinnati's coming off a bye week in this one, but the Bearcats gave up over 163 rushing yards per game, and that concerns me. I think the Cincinnati team is better than people realize, but has their defense been fixed enough to slow down Jalen Daniels, his dual threat capability, Highshaw's mobility at running back? Can the defensive line for Cincinnati get enough pressure on Jalen Daniels against a pretty stout Kansas offensive line? I'm going to say no to all of those. I think Kansas defends their home field. They're 4-1. Then they go on the road to UCF, and I think they should be able to win this game with relative ease because I think the Knights are going to go through some growing pains in 2025. I know everybody's hyped about the return of Scott Frost. Me too. I'm excited about it too. And I think he'll do well here in time. But it's been a little hot minute since he's been a head coach. It's been a hot minute since he's been down in Orlando. A lot of things have changed. And UCF's bringing in over 60 new players. Can all those players legitimately gel and build chemistry to where this team can compete at a high level in the Big 12 in 2025? I'm going to say no. I think Kansas has enough. They're more experienced. Even though they lose so much, even though they lose 38 seniors from last year, Kansas still gets the job done. They're 5-1, undefeated in conference play, probably nationally ranked at this point, I would say. People are getting hyped. They're getting on board the Kansas hype train. Shades of the 2023 season maybe coming into mind here. Shades of what last year should have been maybe coming into mind here for Kansas. But I say pump the brakes because things are going to get a lot tougher. Kansas is 5-1 at the halfway point of the season. They will lose their next 2 games. They're going to lose to Texas Tech. The Jayhawks are 1-11 all-time in Lubbock. 1-11 in Lubbock. And Tech is the real deal. Really good deal, man. The number 1 transfer portal class. Spent a lot of money to get those guys down there. And here's the thing. Baron Morton, if he can stay healthy, is one of the best quarterbacks in this conference. Kansas, we just mentioned, has major concerns in the secondary. An elite quarterback with some great pass catchers and a really good defense in Lubbock against a secondary that has a lot of questions. It's just not going to bode well for the Jayhawks. Hasn't historically. It's not going to change now. They lose that game. They come out of their bye week. Historically, again, things have not gone well for them against Kansas State. Look, the Jayhawks are closing the gap. They're closing the gap. Like, they're cutting it in half, right? Like, they lost by 4 to Kansas State 2 years ago. Last year, they only lost by 2. Maybe this year, they only lose by 1. So maybe next year, they finally get the win. I don't know if that's exactly how it's going to work, right? But the Jayhawks have lost 16 straight in the Sunflower Showdown. This is the 123rd meeting of the Sunflower Showdown. It's huge that they get this game at home. And I think they will play Kansas State very close once again. 2 teams that know how to run the football. But who has the better defense? That's Kansas State. Who's got history on their side? That's Kansas State. I think the Wildcats get the job done. I think it's relatively close, but Kansas drops their 17th straight to their in-state rival. They're 5-3. Maybe they're starting to panic a little bit because you look at the final 4 games, Oklahoma State, Arizona, Iowa State, Utah, 2 of those are on the road, and those final 2 are against 2 of the best teams within the conference. They got to find a way to win just one of those games to go bowling. Rest assured, it comes at home against Oklahoma State. It's homecoming for the Jayhawks on November 1st. The Cowboys have so many questions on both sides of the ball after a very disappointing 3-9 season in 2024. A shocking 3-9 season. I do not have faith in this team whatsoever. I don't know what the offense is going to look like. Maybe they surprise us, but can Zane Flores stay healthy? Is he going to end up being the real deal? Who are his weapons going to be? The defense was atrocious last year. Kansas, in theory, should have their way with them however they want to do it. At home, on homecoming, knowing they can get this win and clinch bowl eligibility and then rest a little bit on those final 3 games. Not that they're just going to take them off, but knowing the pressure's kind of off a little bit, Kansas gets the job done. The Jayhawks are back in the postseason. Lance Leipold continuing to do a ridiculously good job in Lawrence. They're 6-3, and that's huge because I unfortunately think Kansas loses out. 6-3 to 6-6. They go on the road to Arizona. That is a winnable game. But again, I'm concerned about the quarterback play of Kansas opponents, right? Noah Fafita, it's kind of like Jalen Daniels. He had a lot of hype coming into 2024. Didn't really live up to that hype. I think he has a bounce-back season this year. Even without Tetairoa McMillan, at this point in the season, by November 8th, I think he's built chemistry with his new core of wide receivers. Fafita should be able to exploit this Kansas secondary that, again, I'm still very concerned about. The desert, not an easy place to play. Keep in mind also, Arizona returns 9 starters this year. Everything adding up for Arizona in this game for me to get a win, as they could be fighting for their bowl hopes at this late in the season. I think Kansas drops that game to go to 6-4. Then I really don't think they stand much of a chance against Iowa State or Utah. Iowa State, they're going to be like, not much of a chance. We beat Iowa State last year. You did, 45-36. It was awesome. You torched that Iowa State defense for over 530 yards of offense. You think Iowa State's forgotten that? That loss kind of made it a win-or-go-home scenario for them in the Big 12 championship. I'm not saying they would have made the college football playoff with that loss to Arizona State had they beaten Kansas, but they may have had an opportunity, a case for it. It definitely was a big blow for that Cyclones program. Now they're healthier on defense, more healthy than they were last year. Rocco Beck returns for another year. Their top 2 rushers have returned for another year. It's in Ames, which is not an easy place to play. They're going to take out their frustrations against the Jayhawks. They're going to lose that game. And then that Utah game, to me, is a trap game for the Utes. I can maybe see Kansas shocking the nation against a Utah team that I think is going to be highly ranked in the hunt for a Big 12 title, and then Kansas just out of nowhere up and beats them, clinches a winning season, and derails Utah's season. That would not shock me in the slightest, if I'm being completely honest with you. But I just don't see it happening. Utah has a really, really good defense. They've got a mobile quarterback, which concerns me against this Kansas defense I'm still not completely sold on. They are going to be fighting for a potential title berth, a playoff berth, whatever it may be. That's how high I am on the Utes this year. I think Kyle Whittingham has his team ready to go. I think the game, is closer than maybe people expect, but Utah ultimately going to get this win. And with that, Kansas finishes, as we mentioned, 6-6. To me, I don't know how many people can view that as a disappointment. Last year was a disappointment to be that experienced with that much hype, preseason top 25 team to go 5-7. That's a disappointment. This year, Kansas loses 38 seniors from last year's squad. They are less experienced than they were last year, and we actually have them bouncing back, getting one game better than they were in 2024, reaching the postseason, which again, you ask a Kansas fan 5-6 years ago if they'd be thrilled with that, they say absolutely. Lance Leipold continues to defy the odds with this program. He bounces them back. They're very competitive throughout the year. I know a 5-1 start and then going 1-5 down the stretch is less than ideal, but that's just kind of how the schedule lines up. Maybe they can upset Kansas State. Maybe they can beat Arizona. I'd say the ceiling for the Jayhawks is probably 8-4, and that's a pretty high, that's a high ceiling. I think 6-6, 7-5 most likely. Some would say maybe less than 6-6 more likely. But I do have the Jayhawks returning to the postseason. That is good enough. And Lance Leipold continuing to do phenomenal things in Lawrence, and this program only continuing to trend in the right direction. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to our expert picks, some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country. Do not miss out on those. Link for it again in the description, along with our weekly newsletters, also on thegridironexpert.com. Go sign up for those today. Become a member of our GE Nation. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.